And that's therefore like, when you look at the market of renters, there's only one company accounts for over 70% of Google's revenue from TPUs, as far as I understand, and that's Apple, right? And I think there's a whole long story around why Apple hates NVIDIA. But that may be a story for another time. But
you just did a super deep piece on Trainium. Why don't you do the Amazon version of what you just did with Google?
Yeah, so funnily enough, Amazon's chip is the Amazon, I call it the Amazon's Basics TPU, right? And the reason I call it that is because, yes, it uses more silicon. Yes, it uses more memory. Yes, the network is like somewhat comparable to TPUs, right? It's a 4x4x4 Taurus. They just do it in a less efficient way in terms of, hey, they're spending a lot more on active cables, right? Because they're working with Marvell and Alchip on their own chips versus working with Broadcom, the leader in networking, who then can use passive cables, right? Because their SerDes are so strong. Like there's other things here. Their SerDes speed is lower. They spend more silicon area. Like there's all these things about the Trainium that are, you could look at it and be like, wow, this would suck if it was a merchant silicon thing, but it doesn't, because it's Amazon's not paying Broadcom margins, right? They're paying lower margins. They're not paying the margins on the HBM. They're paying lower margins in general, right? Paying the margins to Marvell on HBM. There's all these different things they do to crush the price down to where their Amazon Basics TPU, the Trainium 2, right, is very, very cost effective to the end customer and themselves in terms of HBM per dollar, memory bandwidth per dollar, and it has this world size of 64. Now, Amazon can't do it in one rack. It actually requires them 2 racks to do 64, and the bandwidth between each chip is much slower than NVIDIA's rack, and their memory per chip is lower than NVIDIA's, and their memory bandwidth per chip is lower than NVIDIA. But you're not paying, north of $30,000, $40,000 for this per chip for the server. You're paying, significantly less, right? $5,000 per chip, right? Like, it's like such a gulf, right, for Amazon, and then they pass that on to the customer, right? Because when you buy an NVIDIA GPU, so there is legitimate use cases, and because of this, right, Amazon and Anthropic have decided to make a 400,000 Trainium server supercomputer, right? 400,000 chips, right? Going back to the scaling law is dead. No, they're making a 400,000 chip system because they truly believe in this. Right. And 400,000 chips in one location is not useful for serving inference, right? It's useful for making better models, right? You want your inference to be more distributed than that. So this is a huge investment for them. And while technically it's not that impressive, there are some impressive aspects that I kind of glossed over. It is so cheap and so cost effective that I think it's a decent play for Amazon.
Maybe just wrapping this up, I want to shift a little bit to kind of what you see happening in 25 and 26, right? For example, over the last 30 days, right, we've seen Broadcom, explode higher, NVIDIA trade off a lot. I think there's about a 40% separation over the last 30 days, with Broadcom being this play on custom ASICs, people questioning whether or not NVIDIA's got a lot of new competition, pre-training, not improving at the rate that it was before. Look into your crystal ball for 25, 26. What are you talking to clients about, in terms of what you think are kind of the things that are most misunderstood, best ideas, in the spaces that you cover?
So I think a couple of the things are, hey, Broadcom does have multiple custom ASIC wins, right?